Hello YouTube, Alan back with another video, and well, we're all probably still in lockdown by the time this is going to go out. Certainly we're in lockdown while I'm recording it, so this ain't package and pickups. It's just going to be a little bit more thoughts on things. And this video's topic is going to be thoughts on the next generation. By the time this is recording, next generation is PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and probably a few years down the line, I guess, Switch 2. But we're going to focus on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, given that that's really the only systems we have information on. But it's while they're the new generations coming out, really this kind of conversation is applicable every generation. I see a lot of content on Twitter, commentary, about, oh, here's a game from the current generation. I think it was SNEStastic had Uncharted 4. I can't imagine how games could look better than this. And it's true. Pretty much from the PlayStation 2/3, when you start to transition there, you've gone into HD, you've definitely taken a big step up. You've really got to a solid base in terms of graphic fidelity in a three-dimensional space. And you do kind of get to this, how can games look better? How can games look better? Now they generally do keep looking better. But you do kind of start to see, at least I personally see, a plateau in just how much of an improvement you can make and how much impact that has. So just as an example, we talk about transition from 8-bit to 16-bit. You can see you get rid of a lot of flicker, you have a lot more detail in animations, a lot more, sprites on screen, all this sort of stuff. Quite clear. You go from 16-bit to 32-bit, and there's a huge seismic jump because you have a focus on early 3D. Now, the early 3D was very primitive compared to what we see today, but comparing a 2D game to a 3D game, aesthetically you might prefer some of the 2D 16-bit stuff, but functionally they're massively different. You go to the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox One, or Xbox generation. Side note, what is it with Microsoft and the naming convention? You had Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. I think, other than Xbox, which is pretty generic, the rest of their names are crap. Anyway, that's another topic. The PlayStation 2 era was clearly a massive leap above the PlayStation 1 era, where you had basically games were almost falling apart at the seams, quite literally in some cases, with texture warping and all this sort of stuff. So you got to a nice, solid, you can pretty much represent most things you want in 3D at the PlayStation 2 era. We then move forward to the HD era, and you had the leap to HD. But I look at the PlayStation 4, Xbox, Xbox X, whatever the hell it's called, Xbox One, and I go, what was the leap there? In terms of visual fidelity, honestly, for me, I don't actually see that much of a difference. If you freeze frame two pictures and show Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 4, you'd say, yeah, look, there's more detail here. It's now in 4K. Yeah, I don't have a 4K television. A lot of people don't. But theoretically, 4K, content will still look better on HDTV. But the margin is now massively reduced. And now I hear talks of things like, oh, we're going to have ray tracing, real-time ray tracing, and it's like, and what does that actually mean to me? These technology terms where you have things like ray tracing, you flops, all these flops. The only flops, frankly, in the gaming industry are things like the Virtual Boy and the Wii U. They're flops. When you talk about flops from a technical perspective, it's really irrelevant. It's the bit wars all over again. Oh, I've got more bits. Oh, I'm 16-bit. Oh, Jaguar's a 64-bit machine. Oh, mine must be better because I've got more bits. Really, when it boils down to it, the vast majority of games on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X will look close enough to identical for most people's perception. They can look at a screenshot and maybe analyze a video and say, look, Digital Foundry, look, this one looks it better. Okay, because I played my games with analysis graphs on them so I can see. No, most things are gone fleeting. You have a limited perception with your eyes. So unless you're really looking for the detail, you're not going to notice it. And this might sound like I'm being overly critical. I'm not. Or rather, I suppose I am, but that's not the point. Video gaming is a visual medium. So there's absolutely no harm in people being excited for the next generation of games purely based on the visual jump that they will be able to perceive. I personally don't really see that much of it. That doesn't mean it's not happening and it hasn't happened, or games haven't gotten more complex, which is another side of things. But for me, the gains are becoming more and more and more marginal. So I don't get excited by these new games or by these new systems. In fact, I just look at them as another cost barrier to entry to gaming. If you look at a PlayStation 4 right now, you look at games coming out, you look at Final Fantasy VII not that long launched, and you go, wow, look at that. Look at what they've achieved in the current generation of games. And that's episodic. Is part 2 even going to come on the PlayStation 4? Honestly, I'm not really inclined to pick up Final Fantasy VII until there's a complete version, because otherwise I do not know I'll be able to complete the whole story. So I'm better off holding off. But beyond that, there is the case of this kind of price point too. So we talk about ray tracing and we talk about these new features. I didn't mention things like the new solid state memory, which makes sense from a technical perspective because it reduces load time. But it's going to be expensive. You can't just stick in any USB drive to increase your memory or any SD card. So you're going to have this increased cost to jump in. For some people, particularly I suppose people younger than me, they're going to be really excited about the next game. I want to play the next game as soon as possible. And that's great. In fact, in some ways, I'm a little sad that I don't get excited in that way anymore. But it's just, I don't. So therefore, I can wait 2 years till the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X have been out a couple of years, and they're now come down in price. You've got a greatest hits line started up. You can come in and you can get a whole bunch of great games much more affordably, and you still experience those games. You still get the experience just a little later. So there's not that kind of rush to dive in. Oh my god, I'm so excited for the next gen, because I just don't see the games that are going to be done as being all that different to the games that are done today. Perhaps the biggest change is going to be in the push for kind of Game Pass and streaming services and things like that. And again, that's something that I'm not necessarily going to avail of. You know, this kind of the Netflix of games scenario. And it's kind of a contradictory too. If you have the games being rendered on a remote service and just delivered to you, you know, in a digital stream, you don't actually need a super powerful local device for that. You basically just need a receptacle. So why would you need an ultra powerful console to play these Game Pass type things? I mean, so I know some of the Game Passes, you download the content, but then you get into the other problem of downloading. Final Fantasy VII, 100 gig download. I put in my last packaging pickups video, Assassin's Creed, Resident Evil, Spider-Man. All of them had massive downloads that they wanted on top of installing the disc. Now I didn't download them because, to me, I didn't have the bandwidth capacity to do that. But that is where gaming is going to. You're going to see a massive increase in the consumption of memory, the consumption of bandwidth, these type of things, and you have to be willing to live with that. It's not really what I want to use or how I want to experience my games. So it means personally, I don't get that excited by the next gen of games. It's been decreasing generation per generation because I just see what they offer as being lesser and lesser in terms of something new, something different. I do look and go, oh, those games look nice, and I'll try them out when I get around to it. But it's when I get around to it as opposed to, my god, I have to try that, that's a brand new game. And as I said, a certain part of this is, it's coming from an age thing, because when I remember trying out, I rented, my friends rented a SNES for the weekend, and having played 8-bit consoles, and I think he had an 8-bit computer as well, to see things like Final Fight, Mario Kart, Mario World, it was like, wow. The leap seems so massive. Perhaps for people that have the time, perhaps they're younger, perhaps they can invest more into it, more of themselves, they will look at the leap from Uncharted 4 to Uncharted 5, or God of War, PlayStation 4 to whatever's coming out in the next one, or The Last of Us, any of these really put, or even Final Fantasy 7 Part 1 remake, Part 2 remake, I'm gonna go, wow, this was such a leap. It really sells it more to me. But I just can't, get there myself. And then I look and say, I've seen a new controller for the PlayStation 5, and I go, looks like a PlayStation 4 controller largely. Oh, it's shaped slightly different and the button's been renamed, but it's basically a PlayStation 4 controller, which is fine, which is basically a PlayStation 3 controller with a little pointless touchpad thing added and a light bar, which is a PlayStation 2 controller, which is a PlayStation 1 controller with the DualShock. So nothing has really changed all that much in the controller sphere. No, real. I'm not asking for a revolution there. They talk about having more haptic feedback. That's going nowhere. You can absolutely, unless there's a massive takeoff of VR, which there won't be. Haptic feedback is going to be like Hit the Rumble and the Switch. It's going to be a novelty. They'll try and use it in the beginning, and then it'll be forgotten about it. It's going to be a bit like that touchpad thing. It's basically a pointless novelty. It doesn't really add to the core experience for most games. That's not a problem. Unless you're going to go full bore like Nintendo did with the Wii, all of those things are going to be just add-ons, and they're not really going to make or break the experience. But you don't have to. The experiences are great anyway. You don't have to be a revolution every time. Sometimes evolution is good. Sometimes people can have, a lot of excitement just for minor evolution. That's good too. So I know I've kind of rambled a bit. It's a very broad topic, this whole next gen. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to anyone? It's going to vary from person to person. So I'd definitely be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Anyway, until next time.